I want to welcome Agile XRM to the podcast. I've known the people at Agile XRM for the past 12 years. I've seen how their business process management tool can add massive value to complex organizational processes in sectors such as finance and government. If you have complex processes or a need for dialogues on the Power Platform or Dynamics 365, take a look at how this BPM tool can add value. You can find them at agilexrm.com or check out the show notes for more details. Welcome to the MVP Show. My intention is that you listen to the stories of these MVP guests and are inspired to become an MVP and bring value to the world through your skills. If you have not checked it out already, I do a YouTube series called How to Become an MVP. The link is in the show notes. With that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from the USA. He's the manager for system integrations at Mazars. He was first awarded as MVP in 2022. You can find links to his bio in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you on. Tell me about what you do when you're not working. What do you do for food? What do you do for family? What do you do for fun when the work's behind you?
All right. There are like a lot of topics to address. Let me maybe start with family, the most important, right? I'm originally from Germany, grew up there. My parents still live there. Came over to the US actually a couple years ago on a soccer scholarship, did my MBA here, and started my consulting career then afterwards in New York. Initially tried to or planned to stay 1-2 years here. But a couple of years later, we're here, right? I'm still here in New York, living the Upper West here in New York, and now I can maybe tie it to what I'm doing for fun. I think it's pretty clear now. Soccer, sports, gymming, any kind of activity or competition. That's what I'm doing in my free time. I ran the New York Marathon, for example, last year.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's stuff that I'm doing outside of work. And the food question is a tough one, very tough one, because there's so many good things and recipes and restaurants here, and from a good risotto over paella over just a New York City pizza. Well, I couldn't decide. Let's just say that what my preference is.
Can you get a pretzel as good as what you can get in Germany, like a hot pretzel?
Well, I'm not sure if I should answer that on this podcast. No, I mean the German food or the home cooked food back home is you can taste the difference. I have to be very honest. So, it's not the same, but there are a couple places where it gets close to what you can get back home.
When I first had my first pretzel in Germany, it was just, man, I see what they mean. It's amazing. It's like nothing, totally phenomenal. So tell me, how did you transition from soccer into tech? Like, how did that move happen for you?
All right. I actually played soccer in Germany, and for me that was more a way to continue my education in the US, right? So I got a soccer scholarship, and literally it was more like a way how I can finance my MBA in the US, right? Luckily I was good in sports as well as I was I think a good student. So it was and at some point you need to make a decision what's the preferred route to go. And for me, it was the professional route in tech. And my background in Germany, maybe that's also an interesting fact to add, is engineering. I did my bachelor in engineering. So I always had ties to tech in one or the other way. And I had some good mentors that believed in me when I finished my MBA, that hired me initially and trained me up, built me up, and still in touch with them. Grateful for their mentorship, and that's how I ended up in tech. It was not 100% planned. again, I tried to stay for 1-2 years in the US, wanted to explore it, and it worked out very well.
Cool. What are you doing in the mixed reality space?
Interesting one. I actually published an article about industry trends today about that. What I'm doing with mixed reality, especially focusing on HoloLens 2 and the business application that Microsoft provides in mixed reality space, means guides or remote assist scenarios. Initially, an ERP or an enterprise resource planning system, every organization to some extent needs that, right, to track financials, inventory, and so on. Mixed reality is actually an interesting field at this point because it's more perceived as a cherry on the cake. You don't really 100% need at this point, but I consider it as a game changer or an optimizer, especially for your workforce on the floor that is often doesn't have the availability or the doesn't have the overview about information they need to perform the job while they're performing the job. Mixed reality can bridge that gap, right? In terms of your frontline worker at the manufacturing floor, are you doing an asset inspection? And you have in mixed reality a guide that guides you through a process. And well, you might be not the expert. An expert sits somewhere in the world, and you can via remote assist dial in and have a collaborative session. So those are the use cases that I'm covering, and with Mazars, we're tackling the mixed reality space with those use cases.
How did you feel with the announcements at Microsoft's layoffs that massively, of course, have impacted the HoloLens team specifically, but also, there seems to be a lot of collateral damage around what's been let go there. What does that mean to you for someone that's quite close to it?
Yeah, a couple thoughts that I can share from my perspective is that HoloLens 2 are the business applications that Microsoft supports with guides, remote assist. I believe they're still there to stay. So at least all the information, all the communication that I have heard in the last couple of weeks. But it was definitely interesting to see, because I saw that, or I consider mixed reality as a growth sector, right? It's expensive to invest in because you are currently at this point it's not a cash cow, or you can generate great revenue at this point, but if you don't stay on track, you may miss the train.
Exactly. And that's what blew my mind in this, is that, we can see where we're going with AI, because when you were describing that scenario before and you said, someone who could be sitting on the other side of the world, in my mind, I was like, AI can be the person on the other, like talking to you, guiding you through step by step, right? Whether it's, a step in a manual, you could just ask and they could give you a diagram on screen or point there. I would have thought HoloLens with the world of AI was just on a rocket ship trajectory. And that's what shocked me around the layoffs, because like what you said, for HoloLens to get to, I feel, mainstream everywhere, it's got to get down to, grams and weight. It's got to get really small. It's got to get really, and as you said, is that if they're where they currently are, right, you've got a journey to go on to be able to, okay, let's miniaturize everything. Let's take everything down. Like, let's make sure it's, a fire hazard, in a mining scenario, because that's where I deal with in that front, that it's going to be explosion safe, that all those type of things. I would have thought you been at, to all intents and purposes, it's the market leading tech out there at the moment in this kind of, overlaid space, quite different than Oculus Rift or something like that, where it's, full immersive. That's what shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, again, it caught me for a couple minutes off guard too, and didn't expect it, because again, for me, it was a growth area to invest in, because I see it as a disruptor in the future. So definitely interesting. I think there's also, with more adoption in the in the consumer market, I think we would see more traction in the B2B or in the business market too. At the moment, if you ask organizations, I mean, I can be very honest, very transparent. We're seeing that in organizations right now. If you ask the C-level suite about mixed reality, I think there's not a really clear understanding of what it is. If you don't have the understanding of what it is, how can you actually think it's helping your business processes to be more efficient, productive, and so on? Actually, that's maybe tying back to your initial question, what are we doing or what I'm doing with mixed realities? I try to close that gap, that knowledge gap. And first of all, via blogs, webinars, speaking sessions. I will be in Slovenia in 2 months in May at Dynamics Minds conference speaking about mixed reality manufacturing. That's what I try to, I'm trying to publish and create awareness through content. But also we have an offering in Mazars that's exactly addressing that problem. What is more like an assessment type of engagement where I come in and to sneeze in the C-level suite and explain what is mixed reality, and literally in an app in a day kind of concept, create one use case or address one of their use cases, and they can actually play with it after. So then you get a tangible feeling for it. You know what I mean? And afterwards you can have those conversations. Oh, now I understand it. Oh, now that would be a great use case for our asset inspections, or maybe remote audits, or maybe manufacturing, mixed reality supported manufacturing processes. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my content, with the content that I'm publishing in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so just we'll have one more focus on Microsoft.
Okay.
What do you think their game is there? Like, what do you think? Like, because I know that you don't know the detail, but what's your speculation on what they're going to do? Like, for me, are they pivoting to go, listen, we're going to use mobile screens, tablet screens, and we're going to do much more of a bring your device and chuck it up in front of me, as opposed to what you get with the HoloLens? What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, my hopes. I mean, I can see, I'm working with HoloLens too, right? Again, it has a virtual keyboard. You can have multiple screens. I mean, where I see the future moving, and I hope it's moving in that direction. Again, it's just my personal opinion, is that more and more mixed reality devices will be used instead of like screens, laptops, and so on in the future. At the moment, again, it's still in early stages, but you should keep it on your mind, not only from application standpoint, how can it support, make the client or customer experience better, can internally support processes. And I think Microsoft is still in the game here. Again, there were some articles published that B2B metaverse is still an important thing, with Mesh on top of Teams and stuff like that. So I don't think mixed reality is from the table. I just think economic situations may have caused certain decisions. I still think mixed reality is essential for the future.
Hopefully they'll come out strongly from a marketing perspective and say that's they're staying the course, because as I say, I think a lot of space there. Tell me, you mentioned their Mesh. Tell us about that. And are you doing any work with Mesh at the moment and those B2B workspaces?
Mesh on HoloLens, yes. It's still in early stages too. So adoption is could be quicker. Let's just say that. There will be a mesh. There's a mesh feature that comes on Teams with avatars and stuff like that. Again, it's just an entry, I would say, but it's smart using the Teams infrastructure and building Mesh on top of it. I mean, it makes sense to me, and I'm excited what's to come here. I'm tracking it, and I would love to come on another podcast maybe in a year from now and talk about specific that topic.
Yeah, that would be epic. Did you see the presentation that Satya did in Barcelona about 2019, I think it was, before the pandemic, where they did the launch of HoloLens 2? Did you see that at all?
I can't recall. I may have seen it. I can't recall specifically.
Yeah. So a couple of the use cases that in my mind was like, yes, this will be a game changer for business. One of them was, a virtual boardroom where stakeholders from all around the world put their lenses on, but then everything from presentations to whiteboards, everything was part of the interactive objects. And you could do, for example, a design thinking session, put Post-it notes up, have people interacting, but be in totally different geographies. And then the beauty is all of that digital asset could be saved, could be output into presentations, etc., for circulating with people that weren't there. Do you see that still becoming a reality? That let's say pandemic 2 happens in our lifetime, right?
Hopefully not.
Statistically it says it's going to, right? So isn't that once again a massive reason why the tech that comes with mixed reality is so important, because it allows us to continue to totally function, but with a high fidelity experience?
Yes. Where I have to be honest, I think those use cases in the boardroom or in the office, they're valid. Again, especially if you can track the meeting outcomes or can have the digital artifacts out of it. And if you add ChatGPT and AI on top of it, and you can get recommended follow-up tasks and stuff like that. So there are definitely some interesting use cases on that front. But for me, still, the most obvious use case is for the frontline worker. Means on the manufacturing floor, the folks doing the asset repairs or asset inspections, the people that are literally on the floor doing the work and may often not have access to the information they need when they perform the job. And now you have the ability to have the information in your view while being hands-free, doing your task, and better you execute the process in alignment with security standards. You execute the process in certain quality standards that your organization builds for you, like via a guide, for example. Risk mitigation. If you need support, you can call an expert via remote assist, and every step is tracked. Means if I took 5 minutes on one specific guide step, it's tracked in Dataverse and I can report on it. What does that help you as a manager? You see, all those folks take very long on that manufacturing step. Maybe we need to take a look what's happening here. There's also data insights when you use HoloLens and a guided process. So many use cases for the frontline workers, in my opinion. Those are most obvious. Everything in the office, we have boardrooms, virtual rooms, and those kind of things. And planning sessions for engineers is also valid point. So many use cases. Sorry, I could talk for
it's good.
Minutes, hours.
Good. I love it. I love it. Tell me about how you became an MVP.
Interesting question. So, I mean, as you know, I have a blog, so I publish content via blog. It's called Dynamics Duo Academy.
Nice. We'll put it in the show notes.
Thanks, appreciate that. Additionally, I like to do speaking sessions. I'll be in Slovenia, as I just mentioned, in May. There is another one in the end of the year. The Dynamics Communities North America Summit in North Carolina. I was just in Orlando last year. I did classes and mentoring at Palm Beach Atlantic University, what is the university I played soccer for. They have an ERP track, so I wrote the textbook and mentor students to get the foot in the door in the dynamic space, because I don't think it is that it's a very niche consulting space. Not many people know about it. Yeah, when you're in the industry, you know about it. But if not, it's not like, I want to be a Dynamics 365 F&O consultant. I don't think that will happen often. So, yeah, I mean, those are the three things that I'm focusing on: blogs, content, speaking session, as well as mentoring.
Nice. If last question for you, because we're on time. If you and I were to have this conversation in 5 years' time, what would have changed? And if your vision of reality in the next 5 years could play out, what are we going to see?
Very, very interesting question. Technology wise, I believe, for example, Apple announced that they bring out the consumer glasses. I mean, postponed a couple of times, if you believe the news, right? If we have more, adoption in mixed reality, as well as an advancement here from hardware as well as software perspective. Additionally, use cases with ChatGPT AI, you already see the power here. it will be very interesting. I would be surprised if we still have laptops and screens. I believe that it will be replaced by some kind of glasses that look a little bit more sexy and like more like normal, right? Not as freaky. I would say that will be definitely the case in 5 years. That's my personal opinion. And yeah, I mean, those lower value adding tasks will be most likely replaced by AI capabilities. You can already see it. Content creation, even some easy coding tasks ChatGPT could handle, for example, right? And that's the start, right? So I think there will be a focus more of higher value adding tasks, and it will be also like an interesting to see how it will be impacting like the social circles, right? How does education change? Which jobs do you start after graduation, right? I mean, there's so many interesting topics just that you need to think of. But yeah, I mean, those are a couple of things that I believe could be the case in 5 years.
I like it. So within 20 years, do you think we'll just have contact lenses with everything running on them, so you wouldn't even need glasses?
Well, that would be, I mean, it could be the case, yes.
Embedded microphones in our cheeks and earpiece in our, yeah.
Well,
probably.
I mean, you know that the company from Elon Musk that implant that does implants.
Neuralink.
Correct. Neuralink. Correct. That does implants in pretty much can enhance your skills apparently. You can download a new language and you can speak a new language immediately. That would be interesting to see. But to be fair, how quick technology evolves wouldn't be surprising. Imagine 20 years ago when or the internet or the phone or the smartphone. It was not too long ago. I think we forget that. We forget it often.
Yeah. How would we survive the pandemic if there'd been no internet? You know?
Yeah.
How much do we do virtual meetings nowadays all over the world? My day is literally today is one to I've already done 10 appointments today, and of course all of them from in my office without anyone else around physically.
It's interesting. I mean, actually, one more interesting fact to add here. I think the US embraces remote work and those technologies a lot. While I see in other countries, for example, Germany, remote work meetings is not really well liked, I would say.
Wow, interesting. I mean, I'm at the bottom of the world in New Zealand, and everybody's doing it. As in, even with the choice to work in the office or work from home, because you got your commute, you've got all that hassle. It's massive time savings. You get much more work done. Yes, the culture is not there the same, but hey, we live in a different world. Have some mates that are neighbors and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it has its advantages and disadvantages. I mean, while you're more flexible and you can, you save the commute. I mean, time is so valuable. So from that aspect, remote work is great. But yeah, the team culture as well as also the trust, right? I think especially, I mean, growing up in Germany, I think our culture is a little bit different from that standpoint. We like, the team there, creating that culture, kind of maybe also being in control a little bit more. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and I'm excited to see how the world looks like in 5 and in 20 years, I say.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and want to be a supporter, check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Thanks again, and see you next time.